Hi there everybody. On today's video I have this Honda Jazz. This is a 2005 1.4 petrol right-hand drive, and I'm just going to be changing the rear brake pads in it. So to start with, I'm going to open the brake fluid reservoir, which is just here. If you get the bonnet open, you'll find it in there. So I'm just going to open the little cap and just take that out. If you're working outside, you may want to just leave the cover on top like so. The reason I'm opening the cover here is because we're gonna, when we change the pads, we push the little pistons back to put the new pads in, which then pushes the brake fluid back as well. So also, if your reservoir is full, it could overflow a little bit. So sometimes I put a bit of paper around the area just in case, although I know this one is okay, but that's what I normally do. Just put a rag there or some paper. In case some drops, then it will just drop onto the paper or rag. So now I'm gonna get the, well, I got the wheels off already. And I also have my pads. I'm using these Bosch pads. It's the part number there. Just got the set there. So the procedure for this side will be the same as for the other side. I've got a 12mm socket in here on that bolt. There are going to be 2 bolts in that we need to undo. So this is pretty much the tools I'm using to change the brakes. A flathead screwdriver, the ratchet with a 12mm. These two here are for this tool. This is to wind the piston back, and so this bit here is a 19mm and that is a 24mm. If you buy that, then obviously you're gonna need, you can do it with your hand, but it's a little bit harder. It's a bit easier to do with this, but it is doable with just your hand. And obviously the pads, and I'm using a wire brush to clean and some copper grease, and I'm using the Bosch pads. So this is pretty much everything I need to do, and obviously some brake fluid if you find you need to top up a little bit. Okay, just getting a better view here. We have the one bolt up here, which I've already undone, and then we have the other one down here. Like I said, these are 12mm. That is a bit of at an angle, so I may just need an extension there because it's just hitting this spring here, which is for the handbrake. So I'm gonna get extension. Okay, so just make sure that fits in there nicely. This is a bit corroded, so if it doesn't fit in properly, we could be ending up rounding the bolt. And now it might be a little bit tight. If you find that this bit is turning as well, then you just need to hold it. Either, I think that might be a 17mm or so. Or you can just grab a pair of pliers and hold it there and then undo this bolt. can take those two. And we can then take this caliper out. Okay, so when you take it out, just be careful not to, just be careful with this hose, not to damage it or anything. So just the small movements. Also, you can inspect these rubbers here. Make sure they haven't got any holes. They're not letting any water or dirt in, because then these little pistons inside become they can seize up. So I can see these are moving okay, and the little rubbers are okay. You can also take them out if you wanted to. You can pull them out and just clean inside with a little bit of grease. They're not, it's not a big issue. Let's have a look at that. Just try not to damage the little rubber here. Alright, let's pull that rubber back. There. So that's the piston. You can pull it out, put grease on it, clean it a little bit, and then you can put it back in and just make sure the little dust cover here goes back into the little place, into its place there. Then we have our pads, which look quite thin now. We still have a bit of life, but one side is a bit thinner here. So we'll just take that out. A little bit of corrosion around as well. And again, make a note of this pad that's got that metal bit sticking out there. It goes on that side. I think I would have changed the discs on this as well. They haven't got much of a lip, but they are corrosion. They have corrosion, a bit of corrosion around. So I would have changed them really, but they didn't want me to do it. So in this case, just gonna stick to the pads. And now we're gonna wire brush this as well. So you can get yourself a wire brush and clean those bits. Here too. These little clamps here, you can remove them, and then you can give this area clean too. So I'm just going to wire brush this area, this this here as well. I'm gonna remove the little clamp here and then fit it back. And also I'm going to wire brush our caliper, these bits here and the sides. Just give it a clean basically, and then we'll get back to it. So I've got my little clamps back on, and I put a little bit of copper grease on them. And now the piston here, we need to wind it back, and for that I've got this tool. It winds the pistons back in, so basically we have to turn this sort of clockwise, and you will see the piston going in. So I'm gonna have to do this with my two hands because it's a bit of a pain. So you wind this out while you wind the other one, you wind this one in. So you would need this tool in order to get this back in. So that's basically the idea. And also you can inspect the there's a rubber around this piston. Again, just make sure it's got no torn. Make sure it's not torn or got any gaps or anything, because otherwise this will also seize. So I'm gonna wind that back and then get back to it. Okay, so I've got the piston back now, and I got my pads here. Can get our pads in there now. That's the other one there. Just have to push that in there. Okay. So I'll just apply a little bit of copper grease here and just a little bit on the piston. Now we should be able to fit this caliper in here. If you find it doesn't quite fit, maybe we just need to wind the piston back a little bit more. I can see sticking out a little bit, so I'll just push it back a bit more. Okay, I just needed to wind it a little bit more, but that's it. And now you can I can fit it in there. And all is left to do is to put the two bolts here, close this, and then we have to check our brake fluid. Okay, so you just need your two hands because you need to push this a little bit in to get the little bolt in there, and this one as well, because there's a spring here that holds this. Also, just a little note, I put a little bit of copper grease to this area normally so the wheel doesn't get stuck in there. All the corrosion is created. So let's get these bolts in. Okay, so I'm just getting the bolt back in. If you find this is turning again, you can hold it with your pair of pliers or something so it stops turning. It'll be the same up here. If you find it turns, then just hold it with your pliers, or I mean, you can hold it with your hand, but sometimes they are a bit hard to hold. Okay, I've got it on now, so these don't really go in that tight. I'm just using a small ratchet here. So just once it feels that is close, just give it an extra little bit of force there, and that should be it. So that's done. Now also we need to press the brake pedal before we drive, because the pedal will go in all the way in the first time you press it. It's just because we push the piston back and it needs to come out a little bit.